One idea of mine is that movies are persuasive dreams. Not only are they commercial products that are to be bought and sold, but I think they're way more than that. They're dreams. But how do they persuade you to like them? Let me give you one idea of some of the ways they do this. C-3PO and R2-D2, Laurel and Hardy, Garth and Wayne. These are a number of pairs or groups of people in movies that are very famous. Why are these pairs famous? Well, there could be 1,000 reasons, but one is that there's a contrast principle at play when movie makers pick actors and characters and put them in a film for us to try to get us to love the movie. The contrast principle is in play. Now, what is the contrast principle? Well, it's something important you need to know in terms of business and negotiations and in life itself. Out of a great book by Robert Cialdini, I'm pulling from this, and a number of other places you could go to for this. The contrast principle is, in business, a way to get people to see one thing stand out in contrast to something else. So, for example, in negotiations, a person might introduce a price for a product. It might be a much higher price in order to set the stage so that they can introduce the price they want to sell the thing at or buy the thing at. And that first offer, that first number, contrasts with the number desired because it's much higher, and so that people might take the offer because they buy or sell the thing because that lower price contrasts with a much higher price. Cialdini argues that in persuasion and marketing and politics and so on, that the contrast principle is used throughout to get one thing to look a lot better than the others, to get it to stand out. But I take what Cialdini writes in this entire book, in particular in this case, and look at it in terms of movies, and man, it is amazing how much this contrast principle applies in movies. Look at the character pairs and groups I named. There are so many of them. One is thin, one is large, one is short, one is tall. One has glasses, one doesn't. One is white, one is black. You get these character pairs, particularly in movies where there are pairs of characters, maybe something like a buddy road trip, and you see these two who are contrast with each other, and they work so well together in part because they contrast so well with each other. Shoot, even two of the most famous movie critics ever are just this, a Laurel and Hardy type. You have Roger Ebert, a little bit shorter with glasses, and then you have the bald and tall Gene Siskel, and they are of course responsible for thumbs up, thumbs down. To me, the contrast principle in movies helps both entities, or if there are 3 or 4 of them, helps all of them stand out in terms of each other. When you have one character who's tall and one who's short, it's easy for us to sort out who is who just based upon their height difference. Of course, in film, we need to be able to recognize very quickly who is who and sort out who they are and what they mean and what their identities are. And when characters look too much alike, we start to think perhaps too much during a movie and worry that we're not getting things correctly. So movie makers can help us out by sorting out two characters from each other by making them look wildly different from each other. This applies to characters throughout movie history. In fact, if you look at the Internet Movie Database's top 250 movies, imdb.com, you're going to see like half the movies have two main characters who contrast well with each other. And of course, it could be a man and a woman. That's a little bit easier for any movie viewer to sort of deal with in a rapid-fire 2-hour movie with a lot going on in it to sort out two characters. But when you're talking about two characters of the same sex, two of the same type, we need differences in their looks, appearance, the way they talk, and so on. So yeah, Laurel and Hardy, famous comedic pair. C-3PO and R2-D2. In fact, Star Wars has a great number of contrasts. You have Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi, old bearded guy, young guy without facial hair. You have Han Solo and Chewbacca, you have Han Solo and Lando, you have Luke and Darth Vader, you have Luke Skywalker and Yoda, and then you have even things like Jabba and his minions. So these things make the characters, each of them unique and stand out when they're put next to each other. You can easily tell who is who in any scene where you see the two of them come about. Pixar has been doing this to us forever. Just think about Finding Nemo. In fact, Nemo and Dory, two fish. Wall-E and Eve, I mentioned earlier. Ratatouille, you have the rat and the human involved. What about Buzz and Woody in the Toy Story movies? And then think about Monsters Incorporated. A lot of times the contrast principle is used in terms of actual race or racial types that are easy to discern. Very clearly with skin color, you can have white and black, and and that's the case in a lot of American films. Buddy cop films, for example, like Lethal Weapon. Also, famous movies, Shawshank Redemption, you have Andy and Red. You have the pair of Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor in a number of comedic films. Think about all these. It's John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson, Neo and Morpheus, Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt in the movie Seven, Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson again in Die Hard 3, Clint Eastwood and Morgan Freeman again in Unforgiven. And the list just goes on with these black and white types, making it a little bit easier for us to understand two people coming together. That also may imply, by the way, racial harmony or cooperation to some extent in a movie when two characters like that are together, but at least it helps us sort out who is who in a movie. Now you might be thinking, hey, there are certain movies where people look actually quite a bit alike and they are obviously very different. So for example, these character contrasts could also be ideological. For example, in Star Trek, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. All three white guys. I know Spock has pointy ears, but okay, they kind of sort of look alike, and yet we know the differences between them pretty quickly when the script and, in fact, past shows have developed that. But also you get a movie like Seven Samurai, where to sort out the seven of them, they each look a little bit different, but actually also because of their age and how they act in front of other people. You have the Toshiro Mifune character playing the wild man figure, whereas the more rational leader is calm and collected, also bald and shaved his head like a Buddhist monk. But there are differences that are maybe not just in terms of appearance, but ideological differences as well. This may help us understand why buddy road trip movies are so interesting to us. I mean, Dumb and Dumber, that's in a tradition of road movies like Bob Hope and Bing Crosby. Bob Hope is the comedian, Bing Crosby the crooner. Also, you get into very famous movies, Lawrence of Arabia, for example, The Wizard of Oz, Mad Max Fury Road, and then a group picture like Stagecoach or The Breakfast Club, where you have a group of people, but clearly all five of them look quite different, and it's very easy as each scene goes along to sort out who is who. Now, the contrast principle can apply to anything. It can apply to movie settings. So, for example, in Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, George Lucas picked 4 different settings, and we get wild contrast between each of those settings, something that has happened in a lot of blockbusters and a lot of movies. Contrast can also happen with sound, and one of the most famous kinds of sounds where their contrasts happen are horror movies. When the sound drops out, everything gets quiet. And then everyone who's ever seen a horror movie knows when things get really quiet in a horror movie, you know some big, huge, shocking surprise and massive sound is coming. My question to you is how else, or what are the ways of the contrast principle used in film? I think it's really important to know it's with characters and the way they appear on screen. I think because we don't process things that quickly, but movies are moving along very quickly, it's much easier for movies and maybe more natural to the medium to have two characters when they're on screen contrast with each other so much via appearance. This isn't true all the time, but look at the IMDb.com list. It's true maybe 50, 60, 70% of the time, so it's something worth noting. What other kinds of movies and character contrast can you think of? How would you use them in a movie? If you're going to make a movie, let us know in the comments, and please subscribe to this channel for more great content. Thank you. Have a great day.